Hello guys, so we have a new video I'm going to do, and in this video is some new fragrances that I've tried. And I don't mean new like as in new releases, I mean just new stuff that I've tried, so some of these are going to be actually some old classic fragrances. So let's get into this list. The first one is called Hermescence Vetiver Tonka. This one's from Hermes. This one's very similar to a fragrance by Byredo called Boulder Freak. And the main notes you're going to get is like a little bit of tonka, vetiver, hazelnuts, some tobacco, praline, sandalwood, some lily of the valley. Although I don't think this is really like a tobacco or gourmand fragrance. This is actually more citrusy, woody. It's got a little bit of that initio musk therapy kind of smell to it. So I really like this DNA. I was looking for more fragrances that smell a bit like initio musk therapy and a little bit like Byredo Boulder Freaks. So there's also a lot of these types of fragrances that I personally like. This was one of them that just kind of like grabbed my attention, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And this kind of came out in 2004, so I recommend give this one a try. It's called Hermescence Vetiver Tonka by Hermes. So the next one is by Histoires de Parfum. This one's called 1828. This is a very classy barbershop type scent. It reminds me personally of Dior Homme 2020 or Dior Homme Sport 2021. Kind of cross between like Guerlain's L'Homme Ideal Platine Privé. So this is definitely citrusy, mossy. It's got like that kind of like resinous elemi resin feel to it. The actual notes in there are citrus fruits, nutmeg, pepper, incense, pine, eucalyptus, and yeah, I think it's got a little bit of that oak moss type of smell in it too. But it's very classy and barbershop without having that old man smell to it. So it is quite still unique. It's a really lovely, classy fragrance. Even though the more mature man, maybe in his 30s or late 20s, maybe 40s, is going to be wearing this. So it's not really a young person type of fragrance, but it is very classy. Like I could wear it with a suit or something like that. So I recommend this one, 1828 by Histoires de Parfum. So next is a fragrance by Memoise London, or Memoir, I can't pronounce that, but it's called Veritas. And this reminds me of CK Aromatic Essence. It's a very aromatic coconut type scent. So if you want a coconut fragrance that's got some aromatics in there, like that's not Calvin Klein, this one's pretty good. It's also got some fig in there. It's got coconut, cardamom, fig, cistus flower. There's sea notes, sandalwood, saffron, musk, moss, and bergamot. And it does have a little bit of that like Parfums de Marly Layton type of feel, but this is definitely more coconutty than vanilla, and it's nowhere near as sharp or screechy. This one's actually a little bit more smoother and maybe a little bit more fruity with that the fig, even though I think Layton's got like apple or something in there. This is definitely more my type of coconut that I would want to wear. This is more unisex as well, so this is a very nice unisex fragrance. Veritas by Memoise London. So the next one, it's by Tokyo Milk. This is called Dead Sexy, and I wanted to try this because I was looking for a replacement for Luna Rosa Black, and actually after trying all these different alternatives to Luna Rosa Black, I do think this is probably the closest one. Even though I just recently said that when I tried Clive Christian Amberwood, I'm like, wow, that's really close. This is definitely closer to Luna Rosa Black than the Amberwood by Clive Christian. So this is still a very powdery, rubbery, like vanilla-y tonka type of scent. But then it's a little bit more focused on the woods in here. So it's got some like darker ebony wood, some other types of woods in there. I do feel like it's still got that Angelica feel to it. It is still rubbery. It's still got that powderiness to it. Definitely really nice fragrance. you could say it's still got that tonka coumarin smell in there too. A little bit musky. Really a gorgeous scent. I personally like this one a lot. So if you are looking for an alternative to Luna Rosa Black, give Dead Sexy a try by Tokyo Milk. So next is by a brand that you may not know or you may have heard of. It's called True Fit and Hill. This fragrance, it's just called Sandalwood. And I just kind of just tested this, not really expecting anything, but then it smells a lot like Parfums de Marly Percival, actually. So I didn't expect that when I smelt it. I was like, it's got a lot of that fierce DNA in there, or legend DNA, but it does lean more woody and musky towards the Percival side of things. So the main notes are sandalwood, musk, tonka. It's got some citrus and cedar in there. But I can kind of pick up a little bit of like fir resin and cardamom in there too. Even though it's not listed in the notes, I do think there's probably like some fir resin or cardamom, something in there that gives it that kind of like fierce and Percival type of smell, right? So, True Fit and Hill Sandalwood. Definitely try some of their other fragrances too, because they're really nice as well. I got a chance to try some of their other stuff. And I did quite like most of their options they had. So the next one is actually from Paco Rabanne. This one's going to be 1 Million Golden Oud, Parfum Intense. So I actually loved the very first 1 Million that came out, and then I liked 1 Million Lucky, and then I hated pretty much everything else they released from that point on. And then I fell out of love with 1 Million Lucky. Now I'm not really too keen on Lucky. But now I actually found one that I like, and it was an oud fragrance, Golden Oud. And I was like, that's probably the one that I least expected to like. And I like it because it smells like CH Men Privé, which was a discontinued fragrance. A very sought after fragrance. It goes for a lot of money these days, but now you finally got a pretty decent alternative to CH Men Privé that's not discontinued. So 1 Million Golden Oud, it's still got that kind of like boozy smell to it, boozy leather. It's got some well blended woods and spices in here, like nutmeg, saffron. I personally can smell like some cinnamon or some licorice, fennel, maybe some cardamom or something in there too. But it's got like a little bit of that Boss Bottled Elixir smell as well. I'm pretty sure there's like leather, oud, nutmeg, saffron and stuff in the notes. So yeah, it's definitely got a very resinous and spicy feel to it, but it's done in a very smooth, sweet way, right? Like a little bit like Dior Sauvage Elixir would have done, but more in the style of like CH Men Privé with that leather and Boss Bottled Elixir type of DNA. So the next one is Xerjoff Renaissance. I'm sure everyone's probably heard of this one, but it just took me a little bit longer to get around to trying this one because I just expected it to be a pretty boring citrus fragrance. And I was a little bit surprised actually that it's not really what I was expecting. It's actually more like musky. It's musky and citrus. So I do appreciate like a nice musky citrus. But this one has a little bit of mint in there. It's got some rose, some lily of the valley, got some petitgrain. And compared to my citruses, this one's actually pretty classy in smell. So it's not going to be your Bleu de Chanel type of DNA. This is actually DNA that I feel like it's its own thing, you know. So it's pretty hard for a citrus fragrance to really stand out these days because there's not too much you can really do with citrus. It's in pretty much everything. And citrus is quite hard to do. So I gotta give props here and say that Renaissance by Xerjoff has done really well. Like the muskiness to it and how they managed to make it quite soft and like really classy as well. So yeah, definitely give this one a try. Yeah, and I would say it's a little bit more underrated as well. Like, I don't know if I mentioned there was some rose in here and some lily of the valley, but it's got like some floral elements too that do really balance out that like the mint and petitgrain and the citrus. So I think the florals really do work well in this too. So next is some women's fragrances. I'm going to go into some women's fragrances, or I think they are considered unisex, but I'm going to just say probably more for women here. So this one's going to be Zoologist Seahorse. The name would suggest it's kind of like aquatic, being seahorse and everything, but it's not that aquatic in smell. It's more like floral, powdery, and salty. So it's got some tuberose in here, so it's very like floral from the tuberose. The powderiness comes from cardamom, and the saltiness comes from like the algae note in here. It says this like fennel in there, but I don't really get much fennel. There's some ambrette in here, so maybe that's like the musky, powdery smell that I also get in here. But this one's more like feminine. It's not really an aquatic style fragrance, despite what the name would suggest. It is a little bit salty and floral, but this smells really good. So it is a very nice smelling fragrance, and I recommend this one for women to try this one. Seahorse by a Zoologist. So next is by Wilhelm. This is Poets of Berlin. This is pretty much a sweet and fruity, musky fragrance. So this kind of DNA has been done a little bit, and this is just like a more unique take on that kind of like fruity, musky style DNA. So this has got blueberry, it's got orris, it's got bamboo, vanilla, and sandalwood. The overall smell is like a little bit more feminine, but I found myself quite liking this, so if you're a woman, you may want to give this one a try. It's called Poets of Berlin by Wilhelm. So the next is, I think, from a brand called Nest, or Nest, and this fragrance is called Indigo. I would just say the opening has like this tea note, which is a little bit sharp in the opening, but the dry down becomes quite more enjoyable. It's got like a fruity fig note in there and some cardamom. Cardamom's done a little bit differently than in other cardamom fragrances, but it's got some tea, citrus in there too. If you're just looking for like a pretty simple like fruity fragrance, maybe something a little bit green as well, something that's got a little bit of like powderiness or some aromatics in there from like the cardamom, or even just like a pretty different fig fragrance that doesn't smell like every other fig fragrance out there. Indigo Nest is a pretty good one to try. Like, I'm personally not the biggest fan of fig, but this one, I actually kind of liked it, so I would recommend this one if you're a girl, or even guys could wear this. It is unisex, so you could give this one a try as well. So the next one is by Seven Virtues. This one's called Candied Lychee, and the main notes are just pretty much lychee and peony. So it's just going to be like a Parfums de Marly Delina style fragrance here. The quality and smell is nowhere near Delina though, so like the name suggests, Candied Lychee, it is definitely not a realistic lychee smell, or even as fresh. This is more on the sweeter side. I think there's probably like some sugar notes in here too. So it's got more of a sugary candied lychee type of smell, like a lychee flavored snack or candy you would eat. It's not really like the juicy, sparkling lychee that you would get in like a Kayali sparkling lychee, or like a Delina type of fragrance. So this is like lychee and peony, but done in like more of a different way. So I would recommend trying this one too. I think I tried this in Sephora or something, like Seven Virtues Candied Lychee. So give that one a try. So next is Blanche Beat by Liquid Imaginaires or something like that. So this is a sweet floral musky scent, and these seem to be the trend at the moment for women. Like, everything kind of like smells a little bit like a copy of Black Opium. So I think they all kind of originate from YSL Black Opium, and then over the time they've just evolved that DNA to be a copy of a copy of a copy, and now there's so many different variations of that fruity, sweet, musky type of DNA. It's just, yeah, can be overwhelming, but this one's quite nice actually. This is blanched beet, and it's more of a gourmand feel. So this has some tuberose, like the floral tuberose in there, musk, some ambrette. The gourmand elements in this are vanilla, cacao, and there's a milk note. And the milk is pretty much to give it a lactonic kind of like feel and texture, a little bit creamy. It's got some incense, some jasmine in there. And I think where this kind of like stands out is it's got some synthetic molecules in there too, called mystical and mahonial. So yeah, overall I think it smells pretty good. It's definitely subjective. This is not a blind buy at all. I think if you're a girl, you're not going to go out your way and blind buy this stuff. It's very sweet, and the smell itself is a little bit more subjective. And with that said, the next fragrance is going to be a little bit like that too. So the next one's called Sea Salt and Caramel by Boho Boko. And you've probably heard about this fragrance, or at least this brand. And this one, the name would suggest it's supposed to be aquatic. It's got like seagrass and sea salt in there, but it just smells more like a gourmand salted caramel chocolate or snack you'd probably eat, right? So if you've ever had salted caramel food, it's pretty much just like that. This is just like an overload of sugar. It's got brown sugar, it's got caramel. What I do like is it does have the sea salt. It's got like that seagrass. It's got jasmine, pink pepper, bay leaf. But personally, I don't really like sugar or caramel in fragrances because it kind of comes across as sharp or peppery. It burns your nostrils a little bit. The way you make caramel is you pretty much just burning sugar, and then once it gets to a certain color, you just like add your cream and all that kind of stuff to it. So, or your butter. So I would say I don't like caramel in fragrances because it's got a bitterness to it. Like, even though you would assume caramel is sweet, that burnt element to it makes it very bitter, and I don't like caramel or really sugar in fragrances for that reason. However, this is very polarizing. There's certain things I do like about this and certain things that some people may not like about it. So like the sweetness, it is very sweet, but there's a lot to like about this too, like that sea salt and the seagrass, and it's got the jasmine in here and the bay leaf, and I think those actually work really well with this sweetness. Like the jasmine does complement it really well, and like that, I don't think I've really ever seen like anyone try to make a caramel gourmand fragrance aquatic. So that's definitely, I appreciate what they've tried to do here, and I think that's pretty cool. So next is it's called Talento by Mendy Terosa. This is an aldehyde based fragrance, and it's pretty much just like a refreshing rose and mint fragrance, right? So the mint and aldehydes in here really give this like a fresh and cooling effect. And then there's got some rose in there, which just kind of balances it out a little bit. Some other notes in there are geranium, oak moss, cedar, and patchouli. But I think, I don't remember too well, but I think it did remind me a little bit of like YSL L'Homme Ultime, which is like more of a ginger and rose. And a little bit like Killian's Roses on Ice, which is like, I think, gin and rose, or some type of alcohol and rose as well. Maybe like, I just remember Roses on Ice had this cucumbery, watery feel to it, and I get that kind of like same type of watery rose effect in here. So it's quite refreshing, a very nice fresh rose fragrance, and I think the mint and aldehydes work really well in here to give off that really cooling effect when you smell it. So yeah, definitely give this one a try. It's called Talento by Mendy Terosa. So the next one for women, it's also by Tokyo Milk. I don't know what that was, but something fell down. Yeah, Mendy Terosa. Oh no, sorry. Next one's by Tokyo Milk. It's called Gin and Rose Water. So a little bit similar to the previous one. This has also got that Killian Roses on Ice kind of smell to it. This one, actually, it's a beautiful fresh rose as well. Well, actually, even though it's called rose water, there is technically no rose in here. So this is pretty much gin, mimosa, mandarin, and rosewood. Actually, no rose water or rose listed in the notes, but it does smell a little bit like roses on ice. So it's very refreshing. It's a little bit like that cocktail smell to it. I think the gin and mimosa here actually work really well together. It does smell like, yeah, like a fresh cocktail you'd want to drink. And I would recommend this one to people, but again, it's not like a blind buy fragrance. It's very subjective. Something I personally like the smell of, but I think if I were to like let my sister smell it, I don't know if she's gonna like vibe with that like the same way I vibe with it. So yeah, there's like a couple of these fragrances in here that are not gonna be like safe blind buys, but I did want to make this video anyway just to let you know that they exist, and if you haven't heard of them, it's worth giving them a try because I personally like them. Anyway, the next fragrance and the last one on this list is the Mojave Ghost Absolute. So it's the new Byredo Mojave Ghost that just came out, and it just pretty much smells like the original Mojave Ghost. I can't really smell too much difference between the original, but I've pretty much like figured out that the performance lasts a little bit longer, which is always a bonus. And maybe the downside is the original Mojave Ghost was very light, airy, almost had like a sparkling kind of water quality to it. This, obviously being an absolute, I think is a bit more concentrated. It's got all the same notes in there, like the sapodilla, magnolia, ambrette, violets, sandalwood. So it's got all like the same kind of notes. Very fruity, but it's just done a little bit more dense or concentrated, so it loses a little bit of that like really nice airiness the original had, but the performance is improved with this as well. So I think that's a good thing, so it's always a good thing if you can take that previous DNA and you just make it last a little bit longer without losing too much of the stuff that the original did that made people love it, right? So I think this is a good one. If you like the original Mojave Ghost, give this one a try. If you already own the original Mojave Ghost, it's probably redundant to buy this one. You probably don't need to buy it because it smells the same pretty much. But then again, I haven't really like had a proper chance to like wear it, like I've only smelt this in stores and like tried it, and I was like, oh, like that's pretty good. So a lot of these fragrances are just based on my first impressions actually. So I'm just going into stores, either trying it on skin or paper, or smelling it out the bottle or something like that, right? And yeah, I'm gonna end the video here, and I hope that you've discovered a few more fragrances that you didn't know about. Okay, so have a good day, guys, and give some of these fragrances a try.